Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sports Talk. Today I'm going to be previewing the SEC Conference and who I think is going to win the divisions and eventually the SEC title. So, starting on the East side, in sixth spot, I have the Vanderbilt Commodores with the second-year head coach. They got a QB battle going on. A very rough first season for them under their new head coach. Following last season, I expect improvement, but I do not expect a whole new team as far as their playing uh, or the final standings. I don't see them climbing that much higher than they did last year, if any. Uh, that's why I had to put them last because I think there are just better teams ahead of them, and that I just could not put anybody behind them because of the way they performed last season. I do believe they're going to go with Robinette in the quarterback position, though. In the running back, they have Ralph Webb, and I think they're going to have to make some big plays, and I think they will. I don't think it's going to be enough, like I said before, to make a hugely improved team. I got some key games for them at Houston versus Kentucky, at South Carolina, and at Middle Tennessee. I think they're very winnable games for this team. Versus Kentucky, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and at South Carolina, it's going to be very tough for this team. If they can win that game, I think that they might even be able to make it to the postseason. That's just my pick, and I have them going anywhere between 3-9 and 4-8 on the season. Uh, and then moving on to the fifth spot, I have the Kentucky Wildcats, and a kind of interesting team with their air raid offense. You don't see that so much in the SEC. You see more of a spread offense, but I don't see them exceeding much further than they did last season, much like Vanderbilt. I think their defense needs to play a lot better, and their offense just needs to keep improving. But I really think the defense is where they need to improve the most. I think they're doing good things and they're moving in the right direction. I think in a season or two more under this coaching staff, I think they probably even reach bowl eligibility. But this season, I think it's gonna be another rough year, maybe a 5-7 year. They might even hit the 6-win mark to go to the postseason. And some key games for them versus Florida, versus Mississippi State, versus Auburn, and at Georgia. Uh, very tough games for them, but they gotta win. I would say they gotta win at least one of those games. At least one, probably at least two. If if they're hoping to make it to the bowl season, I'd say the most winnable out of those would be Mississippi State and probably Florida. Except Florida, they're not going to be an easy team to beat this season. We'll get to that a little later. But coming in at number 4 is Missouri, with returning quarterback Matty Mock and running backs Russell Hansbrough and Marcus Murphy. Uh, they have Sasser and Hunt for their key wide receivers. Some key games for this team is at Georgia versus South Carolina versus Mississippi State versus Tennessee and at Arkansas. Now I have this team finishing around 9-3. I think they're going to be pretty solid, especially defensively, like they were last season. I feel like offensively they got to continue to get better. Last season they were kind of flat offensively, but I think this season they're going to keep improving and just getting better. But I don't think it's enough to propel them into the top 3 of the East. So I'm going to have them sit at the 4th spot. And now for the 3rd spot, I have the Florida Gators under first-year head coach Jim McElwain. I think this team's got big potential. They got a QB battle going on with Trayon Harris and Will Grier. They got a great wide receiver in Demarcus Robinson. I feel like this team has the tools to be a threat in the SEC, but the offense has to get better. It cannot be a dull offense and expect to be a threat in the SEC East. The defense is stacked. The secondary is just, they're just going to be a total monster this year. They're not going to be fun to play against. They're just going to be a force to be reckoned with. I would say they're probably going to have at least top 15 defense. I want to say top 10, but And I think if they can get their offense to the top 30, I think they have potential to be a threat in this division because of their defense. Now, some key games for them at Kentucky. It's probably going to be kind of rough for them. This is going to come into the third week, I do believe, or maybe a little further. But it's going to be a road game and against a very talented offense. We'll see how much better the defense gets. And if their defense improves, it could really be a fight for these guys down the stretch in this game. And then versus Tennessee. Tennessee, I think Butch Jones has done such good things for that team. Defensively, I think they're equally as stacked as Florida, if not more. That they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Joshua Dobbs on quarterback, so that's going to be a game to watch. And versus Georgia, you got Nick Chubb and whoever they pick at quarterback. I'm sure by that point in the season, they're going to be pretty comfortable as a team, and their defense, is going to be pretty tough. So that's going to be a very interesting game. And then versus Florida State, I have them finishing around 8-4 to 7-5. I think they have big potential to maybe even win the SEC East in a maybe next season or the season after that. I don't see it this season because they still have to find a quarterback and they just got to find who they are as a team and just get used to the new coaching and everything. So that's where there's the third spot. Still a very successful year under a new head coach. And then to the second spot, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. Now this is probably going to surprise a lot of people, putting Tennessee in the second spot in the East. But as I was saying earlier, Butch Jones has done tremendous things for this team. The momentum this program has, they just keep making bigger steps every season. Yeah, I know he's only been there a couple seasons, but they have improved so much in these 2 seasons. I think Joshua Dobbs is going to have a big season. Jalen Hurd, running back, is going to have a big season. Couple key games versus Oklahoma. That's going to be in the second week. They lost to him at Oklahoma last year, so I think if they can win that, it's going to set the tone to a very, very successful season. Versus Georgia, that's going to be a very difficult game. I know they can win it. I know it's a winnable game for this team. Both are very talented teams. They're very stacked with excellent players. So that's going to be a very interesting game. That's going to really define how this division is going to play out, along with some other key games. But that is definitely a key game to watch. And then at Alabama, that is going to be a very tough road game in a very hostile environment against a top 5 team. Probably the toughest game on their schedule. Expecting big things from Alabama. No reason not to expect big things from Alabama because they just are staying up there at the top. But I think they have potential to win it. The roadness of that game is going to have a huge effect on this team, and I don't know if they're gonna win. If I had to pick the game now, I would say Bama wins, but we got to see how they start out the season, how they're playing. Uh, by that point, Tennessee may be a better team. Very good team though, and I definitely think Tennessee is the top 3 in the East, but I have them at 2 here, and the number 1, I have the Georgia Bulldogs with running back Nick Chubb, and just very talented. When they find out their quarterback, once they get comfortable in their position, it's going to open things up a lot for this team, and they're just gonna I think they're just gonna kind of fall into place, and I think they come out on top of the East with their key games being versus Alabama, a very winnable game for them. Alabama is an excellent team, but it's a home game, and they're a very solid team. So I think by that point in the season, they are definitely going to have what it takes to knock off Alabama. And then at Tennessee, at Auburn, and at Georgia Tech, all three going to be pretty tough road games. I know that they have what it takes to win all these games. This is a very solid team. The coaching staff has done a tremendous job building this team, and I have them finishing around 10-2 and winning the SEC East division.